guys, and welcome to this episode of The Dig. Today we're going to talk about the 2 most likely reasons that you hit the ball out of bounds. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by My Little Athlete, the volleyball store, where you can find unique volleyball apparel, and it's the ultimate source for volleyball team gifts. So if you need a gift this season, go to mylittleathlete.biz. All right, so the 2 most likely reasons you're hitting the ball out of bounds. Now, we're not talking about people who are getting up and hitting the ball at a really sharp angle. We're really talking about if you get up and hit the ball and it goes deep out of bounds off the back line. So if that's you, there's a couple reasons that it might be happening. The lesser of the 2 reasons might be that you don't jump higher than the net. And that's, pretty common if you're short or if you don't jump very high. The net is 7 feet 4 1/4 inches high, and if you cannot jump and reach 7 feet 4 1/4 inches high, then you are going to have a really hard time hitting the ball down. So if the net is above where you're reaching, then you're gonna have to hit the ball up first, and then the ball is not gonna miraculously change directions and start heading back down. So you need to think about it that way if you can increase your vertical a little bit, because you certainly can't increase your height. So if you can increase your vertical a little bit, then you'll have the ability to hit the ball down a little bit more. The only other thing you can do if you're short or don't jump very high is to add top spin to the ball, and that's where you snap your wrist over the ball, and that can add a little bit through like the ball moving through the air currents and stuff. That can add a little bit of a drop to the ball. So if you're really close to hitting it in, but you have some troubles, add some top spin. Oh, and then also you could aim for the corners of the court, because that's going to add a few more feet for you. If you try to hit it straight away, that's 30 feet between the net and the end line. But if you aim for a quarter or a corner, you're probably going to have a little bit more room. From corner to corner is like 42 feet. So aiming for a quarter will give you Aiming for a corner will give you a little more room, and adding some top spin is going to help there also. Now, the second most likely reason, and probably the most common reason that people hit the ball out of bounds, is where they're hitting the ball in relation to their body. So if you are hitting from underneath the ball, or even like past the ball, like if you are closer to the net than the ball is, then you're going to hit it out of bounds. If you stay behind the ball, then you're going to be capable of hitting it down and in. So think of it as though you have a baseball in your hand and you want to throw that ball down to the ground, because like in volleyball, you're thinking, you want to hit it down into the court. So think about a baseball and how you would throw it down into the dirt. Well, you would need to get on top of the baseball. And when you release, your hand will be in front of your shoulder will be in front of your hips, and everything is leaning on that ball, or getting on top of the ball. If you are behind the ball, now think about it, if you're trying to aim at the sky, everything is going to be under the ball. So your hand is back almost behind your shoulder and you're aiming upwards. And that's how a lot of people attack the volleyball. Because the volleyball is in the air, they're attacking it as though they want to send the ball up. And really, you want to attack the ball as though you're trying to hit it down, which, seems kind of obvious. But I think the biggest task for people, or the biggest hurdle, is to figure out, how do I take a ball that's above me and apply the force as though I'm trying to throw the ball into the ground? And so, keep that in mind. So next time that you go to hit, try really hard to plant your feet behind the ball and get on top of the ball when you hit. Stay behind the ball, and then you're able to get on top of it. And again, this only is going to help you if you can jump above the net. If you can get your whole hand above the whole height of the net on your approach jump. So, that would be my 2 best pieces of advice for somebody who hits the ball out of bounds a little bit often. And I've got a couple more little tidbits for you if you're a hitter and you want to improve a little bit. So if that is you, stick around and I will give you a couple more hints. In the meantime, I want to tell you just a little bit about My Little Athlete. It's a business that I started about 4 years ago when my daughter was 2 years old and she was running around in a jersey and spandex. Well, they weren't spandex, they were shorts, but knee pads, and she just looked adorable. And you may have even seen a picture of her because I took a picture and it went on Instagram and Twitter and all over the internet without even me knowing at first. And then people started asking me where they can get that sort of cute little outfit for their kids, and I told them, well, I make them. And so I started a business called My Little Athlete, and now I specialize in volleyball apparel and gifts for everybody who loves volleyball. So if you want to check that stuff out, you can go to mylittleathlete.biz and see what we have to offer. But I know you're here for volleyball tips, so tips on hitting. I already gave you my very best tip, which is to stay behind the ball. And that's the hardest thing. I mean, every single person who comes through has a hard time with that. I shouldn't say every person. I would say every girl. You know, girls have a lot harder time with it than boys. For some reason, boys tend to stay behind the ball a lot better naturally than girls do. And I don't, I have theories on why that might be. But they don't really matter. The fact is, if you want to learn to hit the ball down, you have to stay behind the ball. But that's not the only thing you need to do. Another really good tip for you is that you need to make sure that you're planting your feet facing the setter. So we call that being open to your setter. Your hips are open, your hips are facing the setter, your shoulders are open and they're open to the setter. And that's where you want to jump from. A nice big open position where you're facing your setter. Then some people have a really hard time with that, but then other people have a hard time with closing from the setter. And so when you jump nice and open, then you want to turn your hip as hard and fast as you can towards the net, your back hip, so that you're turning your hip into the ball and turning your shoulder into the ball, and you're finishing facing the net. So you jump facing your setter, you finish facing the net. And that's going to create a lot of power from your abs, and a lot of torque goes into the ball and all sorts of good things to really help you swing hard. Now, I know that some people like to hit crossbody, and I know that that's a functional shot for a lot of people, but that can put a lot of wear and tear on a shoulder. And if you're not in need of a lot of really special like cut shots, and like if you're playing at a level where getting up and bombing the ball really effectively, just getting up and hitting hard into a certain area is going to score points, which most levels that's going to work pretty well, then really using your hip to turn and your shoulder to turn is going to help you a lot. If you are like upper level and you need to really disguise what you're doing because the other team is just so good, then you might need to do some crossbody hitting and stuff. But we're not even going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about using your hip and your shoulder and turning into the ball so that you can use your abs, and you can really use your whole body to get some power. The last tip that I'm going to mention is a little less of a tip and more of a thought for you. You need to remember as the hitter that the only obstacle in volleyball is that net, and it's nice and high. It's way up there. And so instead of trying to bomb the ball straight or jump forward, really everything in volleyball, when it comes to net play, is up. You have to get yourself up as high as you can. And so don't make sure that you do not go flying forward in your jump towards the net, and make sure that you don't put all of your effort in hitting the ball flat and hard. You really want to elevate your entire right side if you hit with your right hand, left side if you hit with your left hand, but whatever side you hit with, you want to really elevate that. You want to elevate your right, or if you're right-handed, you want to elevate your right hip and your right shoulder and your right hand so that you're really reaching as high as you possibly can to get over that single obstacle called the net. So that's it for this episode. If you have any additional questions for me, you can email me or hit me up on Instagram or whatever, any way you can find to get a hold of me. This episode will be available to you at mylittleathlete.biz/S3E1 because we are in season 3, episode 1. So until next time, go ahead and send me your questions and your comments on this episode. Thanks for listening, and I will see you again soon.